how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. And I'm just gonna get right into it, just rip off the band-aid off of these news. And as I'm sure like a lot of you already know by now, Henry Cavill has been fired from Warner Brothers DC Studios from the role of Superman. And that's all thanks to James Gunn. And there is mostly negative feedback to this whole situation. A lot of backlash is heading towards James Gunn. You all know James Gunn as the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, and you know a few other projects like Peacemaker and other things like that. And the guy is really well known for actually bringing a lot of light humor, but really good writing and good direction when it comes to properties as such. He even did a better version of the Suicide Squad, and that's pretty much all the backstory I'm going to give you. I mean, if you want to count the Scooby-Doo movies, those are pretty good. But anyways, going off topic. It's really sad stuff, you know. Henry Cavill has been fired from the role of Superman, and in my opinion, I think Henry Cavill is one of the greatest Superman we've ever had in a very long time. And say what you will about that opinion, I think he's a phenomenal Superman. I very much enjoyed Man of Steel, despite some of its weird editing in the film, which I thought was a little odd, and till this day, I still do think it's odd. You probably already know what scene I'm talking about when it comes to editing. Ooh, did you hear that? My arm just cracked. My God, I'm an old man. This sort of news has brought a lot of like anger towards the, you know, especially for the fans. And I wanted it to like simmer down just a little bit before I decided to give my input about the whole situation. And I read some really nasty comments made towards James Gunn, and he doesn't seem like he's being fazed about it at all. Understandably so, when it comes to people being very passionate, you would call those people pretty much fans. Henry Cavill actually even put it best when talking about toxic fans and toxic people and whatnot. And he didn't view it as such. He viewed it as more like people just being fans and passionate about stuff.
There's something really interesting with this character that I find fascinating, which is that he genuinely really does just want to do the right thing. But everywhere he goes, whether it's a new town or a new bar, people just kind of give him a hard time and they rag on him despite the fact that he has great intentions. I'm curious if that's comparable to this sort of world, this culture of toxic fandom, where like if you make a movie, especially if you make a superhero movie, like you have great intentions, but there are always going to be a small yet vocal group of people there can kind of just be toxic.
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to fans, it is a fan's right to have whatever opinion they want to have. And people are going to be upset because, especially when you're talking about books or games, because you're never going to be the exact person who they had in their head or who they played on Witcher 3, for example. I don't necessarily consider that toxic. I just consider that passionate.
I get it, you know. In his defense, I mean, I think Henry Cavill is a great Superman. And the reasoning behind his termination from the role is because James Gunn wanted to take the character in a different direction, starting with, you know, the early years of Superman. And Henry Cavill just wouldn't fit that because the man's about, what, 39 years old now to 40 years old? I see where he's going if he wanted to give the universe, you know, the DC universe, a very fresh start. I understand where I understand where James Gunn's coming from, despite the fact that I'm still a little sad and taken aback about these news, because Henry Cavill hasn't been having such a great year, if you really think about it. I mean, just a little earlier, literally like about a couple months ago, he departed from the Witcher series, because the Netflix The Witcher series wasn't going in the direction that he thought would be best, which is to follow the source material, the lore, even the video games. And as we all know, Henry Cavill is, if you didn't know, he's a big time nerd, a geek. He's a gamer. Henry Cavill loves playing video games, and he loves like board games, and he's even going into Amazon Studios to develop his own series, which I think he's going to have a little bit more control over, and that's the Warhammer 40K. Which I knew nothing much about other than the fact that I've heard of the title of Warhammer, and that's it. Before I give more of my inputs about this whole situation and talk about where I think DC Studios should head as far as direction goes, let me go ahead and read a couple of articles. I'm not going to like read everything because there's just so much going on in the back end related to Black Adam, which I won't totally cover. This article here is from Superhero Hype, and it's titled Superman star Henry Cavill says, "My turn to wear the cape has passed." Man, I hate reading that. And if you all follow me on Instagram, which you all should, my social medias is here on the screen. You can follow me at NewsToSonic on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter, where I post stuff there. I mean, if you don't want to follow me on YouTube, although your support for YouTube, my YouTube channel, is highly appreciated. 2 months ago, Man of Steel star Henry Cavill proudly announced that he was back as Superman in upcoming DC Extended Universe projects. And that's another thing. Just shortly, like literally a while ago, like maybe 2 months ago, yeah, in October to be exact, yeah, he actually posted a video, you know, talking to the fans saying, hey, I'm back as Superman. Warner Brothers gave him the okay after like about a decade of Henry Cavill not getting a proper Man of Steel sequel. They finally allow him to come back into the fold, and he's back as Superman, only to get canned 2 months later. And that announcement was shortly after he announced that he's leaving the Witcher series and passed on the lead role to Liam Hemsworth, which is Chris Hemsworth's younger brother, which I think it's going to fail because of that, because they don't see anybody else doing that role justice besides Henry Cavill. I just don't understand it. I'm sorry if I'm going on a tangent here, but there's a lot of mixed emotions in here. It's frustration, anger, sadness, and everything. Henry Cavill, from what I've seen in interviews, movies, shows, whatnot, Henry Cavill is a very likable guy. The guy's a gamer. He's a PC nerd. He's a PC gamer. He's a really nice guy. He's very gentle, and he's really professional with people. He's a guy with class, and he's handled both situations, leaving The Witcher with class, and also accepting the fact that he has to now be forced to retire the role of Superman. He handled that with class as well, because, you know, James Gunn likes Henry Cavill, and he hopes for him to return to perhaps direct a DC studio project or appear in a DC studio project in some form or fashion. Anyways, let me get into that a little bit more. I'm sorry. It's just that this is, you know, as a fan, I'm talking about this with a lot of passion behind it, and there's just so many emotions that I can't really collect myself. I can't get the words to come out, the right words to come out when it comes to something like this, because it's a little upsetting, you know, and I'm one of those people that really liked and enjoyed Man of Steel. So, however, plans changed after James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC Studios in November. Earlier today, Gunn announced that he is writing a new Young Superman movie and that Cavill would not return. And I'm sure that's not going to be an origin movie from what I know, because James Gunn's not doing an origin film. We've already seen origin films so many times, and I think a lot of people already know about Superman's origin. Now, Cavill has shared his response to the news on Instagram account. So this is where his real class shows. Like, he's a total class act. I just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone, and said Cavill. I even posted this on my Instagram story if you want to check that out, but whatever, you can even go to Henry Cavill's Instagram page. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October, prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. No, that's really mostly Hollywood being a total bitch. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. I'm sure that wasn't really easy for him to write, but he really did handle that really well. Unlike The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who's totally being a man-child from what I know. I mean, the guy's like the nicest guy in Hollywood, but from what I know, there's word going around, at least it shows that he unfollowed the Black Adam account and Warner Brothers DC Studios accounts on Twitter because of this announcement. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm done. I don't care about this anymore. If this is how they're going to go, I'm leaving. But then there's now word about him saying that no, he's denying it, that he denies unfollowing those accounts. But like a true Man of Steel, Cavill added that for those who have been by his side throughout the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Might turn to where the cape has passed, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards. On Twitter, Gunn noted that he and Safran had a great meeting with Henry and were big fans. And we talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future. So it's possible that Cavill may eventually have a role in the DC Studios films, but it may not be Superman. What do you think about Cavill's response to the Superman news? Honestly, like I stated before, it is saddening. It's upsetting for the most part. Some people are just taking it so bad that they seem like they're really hurt and they're angry. Cavill is essential to the DC universe. Henry Cavill is Superman. I think it's one of the most greatest castings there ever was. Henry Cavill looks the part. Henry Cavill has the right mannerisms, the right look, the right tone to be Superman, at least for what Zack Snyder was going for. And like in his mid-credit scenes for Black Adam, he was already leaning towards more of like the, I guess you can say, I think it was not John Williams. That's the guy that did the score for the Superman movies. Oh my God, the Christopher Reeve movies. He was heading in that direction when it comes to tone, where he was brighter, he was more upbeat, he was more positive. He was starting to lean towards being the Superman that a lot of people know Superman to be in the comics, and I was actually pretty excited for that. I was looking forward to that because for the longest time, Superman had been kind of like this greedy character. And again, it's not Henry Cavill's fault for why some people may have not liked this version of Superman. It's more of like the writing staff. Like I mentioned before in a lot of my videos, you know, the dark and gritty stuff tends to be like the thing that people really gravitate towards. I mean, just looking at the shot alone, the suit is really too dark as far as like, you know, the blue goes and the red goes and the yellow. In the mid-credit scene for Black Adam, his suit was a lot brighter. The blues on his suit was brighter. The red was really shiny, and the yellow was really bright as well. Everything about it was really bright. It was an actual upgrade on the costume. But anyways, and then there's this where the Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot's cameos were cut from the Flash movie, because those characters were supposed to make an appearance. Now, as far as like the rest of the DC films that remain, I don't know what's going to happen regarding those films. Maybe DC Studios is going to let those films to continue on to premiere at movie theaters, but something tells me these news is going to affect the performances of those films, because at the end of the day, those movies are not going to matter. James Gunn is not going to want to probably continue with Jason Momoa's Aquaman. James Gunn's not going to want to continue to develop more Shazam movies. And certainly Wonder Woman 3 was canceled as well. Gal Gadot is not returning as Wonder Woman. Now, in my opinion, I don't really think Gal Gadot was actually all that great of a Wonder Woman. I could have seen someone else in the role a little bit better, like someone else in the role. Like the first Wonder Woman is a good movie. I enjoyed that film. The second one was not good. It was horrible. And this is from the same director. So in this news, Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot's cameos were cut from the Flash movie. So between Wonder Woman 3 cancellation and Henry Cavill's Superman exit, all the signs are pointing to DC starting a brand new cinematic universe with the co-CEOs James Gunn and Peter Safran guiding the ship. But even as they continue to chart the franchise's future, Warner Bros. Still has a few movies hitting theaters next year establishing DCEU heroes, including The Flash and the Aquaman and Lost Kingdom. However, the studio is in the process of cutting down on the former film's ties to any lingering Snyderverse canon. The Hollywood Reporter brings word that Cavill and Gal Gadot shot both cameos for The Flash, but in the light of the recent events, their scenes have been left on the cutting room floor. If you're going to do a proper reset of the universe and pull a new 52, which I personally enjoyed, even though this is mostly a Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel account, channel, where we mostly talk about Marvel stuff, I tend to like dabble into DC stuff because there are a few characters that I love from DC, and The Flash being one of those characters that I really love. He's my favorite DC character. He's first, Batman is second to him, and then there's Superman. But The Flash is the key to this reset. The way I see it, since the Flash film is focused on Barry Allen going back in time to save his mother, I think that'll be a trigger to change everything moving forward. I think The Flash is the key to reset everything moving forward, including the recasting of Ezra Miller's The Flash, because I don't think Ezra Miller's all that great of a Flash. Despite the fact that The Flash is my favorite character, I can't seem to separate the artist from the art. And knowing that everything that Ezra Miller has done up until this point, because of his him lashing out on people, assaulting people, and everything like that, I can't see him as the Flash moving forward. Now, I will go see The Flash because I really love the material, but I just can't. I can't stand Ezra Miller anymore. The guy's not likable. A guy assaults people. He's a danger to society, and he's just awful. But I've already done a couple videos talking about that, so if you want to watch those, you can find them on my channel. The report doesn't say when Cavill and Gadot filmed their Flash cameos, but according to the THR sources, Cavill earned $250,000 for his work on the movie, and the same amount of money he was paid to appear in Black Adam earlier this year. We already knew that Cavill owed his short-lived Superman comeback to Black Adam star Dwayne Johnson, who personally lobbied for the actor to show up in the film's mid-credit scene. Subsequently, WB co-chiefs Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi began developing a proper follow-up to Man of Steel. They even commissioned a treatment from Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight, which reportedly featured Brainiac as the main villain. All of this happened before Gunn and Safran began finalizing their own plans for DC. So far, this includes a new Superman movie that centers on a younger version of the character, effectively ruling out Cavill's return. It also presumably dashes Johnson's hope for big screen brawl between their respective characters. Give Black Adam's disappointing financial box office performance, which it didn't break even. The movie had to make about over $400 million to break even, because the movie was about $150 million budget. In order for that film to have broken even, it had to make about $420 to $450 million. Normally when a film breaks even, it's good to go for a sequel. So the movie needs to make at least 3 times the amount of the budget. That's to cover advertising costs, marketing, and also to cover the special effects and paying the actors as well. So it also presumably dashes Johnson's hope for a big screen brawl, which I already read. Earlier this week, Cavill confirmed that he would no longer play Superman in any upcoming DC productions. As for Gadot, she has yet to directly comment on the recent news surrounding Wonder Woman 3, but director Patty Jenkins released a statement claiming that she never walked away from the sequel, quote unquote. How do you feel about the Flash losing cameos from both Cavill and Gadot? Let us know in the comment section below. So again, the Flash losing cameos from that, it makes sense because of all of this that's happening. It's sad to read about, but they got to move forward if they're aiming to create an entirely new universe. Right now, all I can say is that, yes, these news is really upsetting. The news about Cavill's termination from the role of Superman is really upsetting. And to some, people might find it upsetting that Gal Gadot will no longer be Wonder Woman. I didn't really care much about that, in my opinion. But you know what? This is how they're going to do it. If it means DC Studios is going to be organized moving forward to create a more organized, universe, kind of like how Marvel Studios is doing it, even though their Phase 4 was kind of like not that great, then I'm all for it, because I really love to see Marvel Studios have competition. I really hate to see something fail like DC. They handled their movies since 2013 like they've been really messy and disorganized, and it saddens me because this is properties that I really enjoy. And one other thing that I don't understand, and this is also under the same umbrella, Warner Brothers, their animated projects from DC is completely untouchable, in my opinion. Like, Marvel can't touch that. DC animated projects, films, are so good. Like, it makes me wonder, why can't Warner Brothers do that for their films? I just don't understand that. But that's just me. I'm sorry I'm going off a tangent. I know this is all about Henry Cavill. Again, I just wanted to address that. This is really sad. I think I've said everything I had to say about this whole situation. You guys let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts about this whole situation? I like to read your comments. And as always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click on the bell notifications so you all don't miss anything. And I'll see you all in the next comic panel.